D. Mace Fingen and Donick 1025, 1063 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingen, David Janes. The gang's all here. It's been a minute since we've all been together.
Yes, it has been, and it's great to have all three voices back on the radio. So cheers.
I'm rejuvenated, reinvigorated, recharged.
All the rees.
All the rees.
Hey, but listen, you know what? Today is the greatest day in cinematic history, okay?
Why is that?
One of the greatest movies that has ever been written and then put on screen, one of the greatest musicals. And if you know me, you know what I'm talking about, because 47 years ago today,
Grease,
this movie came out. Oh, yeah. It's going to be a good day today. Oh, yeah.
Where did your fascination with Grease begin?
It started in grade school.
Okay.
I was, fifth, sixth grade in music class, because back then, Willie, you know, in music class or in a class where the teacher really don't want to do any assignments that day, and she wanted to be a free day, and everybody loved free days. So they would roll this big, thing out with this huge TV on it.
Remember when TVs had backs?
Yeah, this TV had a back, a big back. Okay,
big back.
And they rolled it out, and underneath that TV with a big back. And I know some of you young folks on the other side of that glass, Emily and all y'all probably saying, "What is a big television?"
Not all TVs were flat screens.
Yeah,
guys.
all TVs wasn't like an inch thick. Okay, we're talking about 50 inches thick. Okay, but they would roll the TV in with the huge VCR underneath it, and they would slide the VHS. Yes, people, VHS in. And lo and behold, that is the day that I fell in love with Grease.
Very
that
nice.
Day.
You want to hear something crazy? This is where I'm at. I went to that movie in the theater in 1978. I guess is that right? 47 years ago. Is that right?
Yeah, we're close. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I went, and I remember it vividly, and I had the record with the soundtrack, jamming out to all the great tunes. I got them all imprinted on my brain right now. So I am not the equal of D. Mace. I don't know anybody that's the equal of D. Mace in his love for that movie, but I definitely have nothing but love for Grease.
Grease is one of the great.
Happy Grease. Grease is the word.
Happy
today.
Grease Day. Yeah, Grease is the word. Oh, I love it. Today is Grease is the word. All right, David back there. So Grease is a word, whether it's a song you play in and out of the breaks, or it's something that one of the characters say.
It's the Grease Day.
It's the Grease Day. There we go. Boom.
My favorite line.
Pull out the soundtrack. Pull out the soundtrack.
My favorite line is a hickey from Kanicki. It's like a Hallmark. That is my favorite line from that film. Also, I want to wish a happy belated Father's Day to all the Titans moms and fatherly figures out there.
Whoops. Wow.
When your social media team can't even wish your fans a happy Father's Day correctly, you know why your team is at the bottom of the NFL.
Y'all don't give a damn about the fathers on the team. That's the problem. Good Lord.
Oh, they can't even do that right.
Man, the Titans, I swear, y'all, at times, y'all just give the fans what they don't want, and that's laughter, okay? They don't want people to be laughing about their franchise, and lo and behold, and this has nothing to do with Amy or anybody else. Whoever's in that department, that social media department, come on, y'all got to do better than that.
It was a poor cutting and pasting job. We've all been there,
yeah,
but
we all did. We've all done it.
We've all had.
But I haven't done it for $1 billion company though.
No, that is true.
You've done it for D. Mace,
exactly.
but not.
I've done it for myself.
Yeah.
So what did I miss? So look, I know the two of you.
You didn't miss much, Adam, because you were tweeting us and texting us.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah, send us text during the show.
Hold on. Time out. So I want to be clear about a couple of things.
Okay.
Yes, I did share some stories and some tweets and some
Yes.
things while I was away, but I did it at quiet moments when I wasn't interacting with my family. For
Of
example,
course.
I sent y'all the story about Zakai Ziegler
Yes.
when I was sitting on the beach. My wife and mother-in-law and my son and my niece were on a walk, so I was by myself. I had a quiet moment. I don't think that's out of bounds. By the way, that beach, I texted Willie this. That beach I went to, beautiful Dunedin, Florida, which was nearby where my where my in-laws live. And for those of you who don't know, Dunedin is the longtime spring training home of the Toronto Blue Jays. So I thought to myself, 30-something years ago, this hotshot baseball prospect by the name of Will Donick
Wow.
was probably trolling these same beaches, scoping out the ladies.
That is absolutely true. 1993 and 94, a couple of spring trainings with the Jays.
Young Willie
20
Donick.
25th round pick. I did spend I spent, get this, the extended spring training, which is not what you want to be. And this was a precursor of why my career was short, because I did not jump up into the full season team. So they held me back. But we had an absolute blast in Dunedin for about 3 months. And then what they have is a shorter season starts in about June. So I had an April and a May in Dunedin in 1994, and man, did we have a plush setup especially for a minor leaguer, because just being in Dunedin, you're close to the jet skis, and I'm sure you saw a few of those, Adam. But on the beach there, and could go do this or that. It was a little bit better than being in, no offense to Medicine Hat or St. Catharines, where I played my minor league seasons, but wasn't all bad.
I'm picturing, speaking of Greece, I'm picturing the opening beach scene with Danny Zuko.
Yes.
With Willie and his flavor of the month. And they don't want to say goodbye, but Willie says, I don't have to say goodbye. I'm staying for extended spring training.
Yeah. I wish I had met Olivia Newton-John. If I could have met Olivia Newton-John, I would have been in heaven. I
think everybody would have been in heaven then.
Your Sandy, she was sad that she thought you had to leave, and you say, nope, I get to stay.
I'm extending
my baseball career may be in the drain, but I get to stay with you.
Right.
Do. I heard what Jeffrey Simmons had to say when he addressed reporters at mandatory minicamp. I found his response to be unsatisfying.
I think a lot of people would agree with you. I think a lot of people would agree with you.
The sense that I got was he knew that he was going to be asked about it. He probably rehearsed it a couple of times, and I thought the follow-up questions were good. You could tell that he was trying to refer back to the original statement, but it left too much of the proverbial door open for speculation. Like, it's a personal decision. Is it a personal decision because he disagrees with something that the team did? Is there something going on in his life? Like, I thought that he could have nipped it in the bud, but instead I feel like he extended the news cycle with how he answered that question.
Yeah, but that's, if you've been, like we all have been, following Jeff since he's gotten in the NFL, and more in particular, since he's became, quote unquote, the leader, is that, these things tend to occur where he says some things and not really want to get into it and kind of make it vague, or something's happening or something happens and he addresses it a certain way. That's just, the way he chooses to, navigate through, whatever questions he had, whatever questions that are being asked of him. But this time, I think, and we've discussed this, and it's good to have Adam on now because, he can give his perspective from a journalist aspect when you're asking these questions. And do you continue to push, or do you just kind of leave it alone? But I don't think he did himself a service. I think he did himself a disservice, because, one, if you knew you were going to miss, you discussed it with the coach is going to be asked, and there should be a uniform answer between you and the head coach. Okay, if it's personal, then Jeff, what is it? Do you just want to, work out with your guys for the last, day or two before you come in the camp? Let us know. So then we can sort of address it that way. So when you come back, the message is the same across the board. But it doesn't seem like there was any cohesiveness within their answers. And then when you ask Jeff, it's like, well, it's personal. It was personal reasons. And well, what are the personal reasons? Well, it all was personal. Well, what was it, Jeff? And some people may have asked because they were concerned. Like, oh, what's going on? But some people asked because they just wanted to know and they didn't care whether it was good or bad. I get that.
Yeah, they're prying a little
Exactly.
bit. So let me ask Adam this from the journalistic angle. I gave my perspective on it last week when D Mace and I hit it in the moment. But you just hit on, I think, a key point that people listening may not understand the dynamic. Sometimes you're in the press conference, you're a reporter trying to get the right answer, and then you've got the PR team and you got the player, right? And as you said, it's gone through. How are we going to answer these questions? Well, let's go through it. Let's talk you through it. Let's get our bullet points. Some players maybe pay more attention to that than others. Some are more natural at being able to handle it. But you said refer back to the original statement. There's no question that that's what he was sort of coached to do, right? And so you can pick up on this as a reporter, Adam. So tell us about that and how that works, and your mindset as a reporter as when to try to press the issue a little bit, knowing that he's trying to limit what he's going to say.
Yeah, and I guess the word I would use to describe the tone that Jeffrey Simmons had when answering those questions was dismissive, almost as if he were trying to say, without actually saying it, why are you asking me about this? I wasn't here. It was a personal decision. Let it go. That's the vibe I got from listening to it. But it is a delicate balance, especially when you're dealing with a serious topic. Now, I know there's been some reporting about something with Jeffrey Simmons. Is it child support?
It's a special needs son
Okay.
that reportedly he has, and there's been some discussions and working back and forth with the mother on support and needs and things like that.
And
that is
like
a personal matter, but it is, I guess it's gone into the courts.
Okay.
No,
so that's why it's become a story.
I think TD did come on, and I believe on Jared's show, he did say that whatever problem they did have, they cleared it up.
Okay.
They says it's cleared up now.
So
that's good to hear.
The way that he answered those questions, as I said, the tone, the word I would use to describe his tone is dismissive. And I believe he's asked the initial question, why weren't you here? He says it's a personal decision, all of this other stuff. I believe it was Steve Lehman who followed up, personal to football, or and he just repeated what he said, or attempted to repeat exactly what he said the first time. So there is a delicate balance in trying to pry an interview subject into giving more information, but there does come a point where you realize you're not getting anything, and you do not want to bring about any sort of unnecessary confrontation. So, I mean, there have been times, maybe this is not the best example, but the example that immediately comes to mind, and Willie, you'll remember this vividly, several years ago when Austin Watson, former Predators forward, was arrested after I guess you could describe it as a domestic dispute with his girlfriend.
Right. And it happened at a gas station. And so there was a lot of questions because it happened out in the open.
Right.
And there was a big follow-up, etc.
So I remember he was suspended for a third of the season. I believe it was 27 games, I want to say, which, if I recall correctly, was the longest suspension for an off-ice incident in at least recent NHL history, perhaps all of NHL history. But I remember his suspension was reduced. So he was going to come back on a road game in Arizona. So I actually had to book a flight like at last minute to fly from Nashville to Phoenix, drive to Glendale so I could talk to Austin Watson. And Austin Watson, he was prepared. He gave a bit of a statement, if I recall, in the dressing room. And I was there, and Paul Scarbino was there, and we were trying to ask more specific questions. And Watson was coached not to delve too far into it. But in a situation like that, you're trying to get more information, but you're also trying to be sensitive to what that person is going through. So it's a bit of a dance. So I thought the questions that were asked of Jeffrey Simmons, I thought they were the right questions, but I don't think there was going to be any sort of question that was going to get more out of Jeffrey Simmons than we ultimately got. And I just think that Titans fans were hoping for some more information, hoping for a reason that seemed justified or justifiable to them. And I don't think they got that. So I still think the questions remain about Jeffrey Simmons. But ultimately, if he comes he's not going to miss training camp, presumably. When he comes to training camp, and if he practices well and he does well in the joint practices, and then he gets into the season and he's playing well, nobody's going to remember any of this stuff. The thing that's making this a story is the fact that Jeffrey Simmons has not been the Jeffrey Simmons now for a few years, which adds on to what's been going on.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just, one, he's not playing, like you said, Adam. He's not playing up to the level or the standard that he set 3 years ago. Was it 2 or 3 seasons ago? He hasn't reached that standard yet. He's dipped each and every season after that. Now, listen, it hasn't been, something where he's been a bad player, but he set the bar high. And he's not playing up to that bar. And we know that he's capable of playing. And I'm sure he expects to play at that level. So not only is it that, but it's the episodes or the incidents that have happened over the last 2 years that makes one think, like, is Jeffrey really the leader of this team, or a guy that wants to lead but don't know how to lead? I'm not sure which one it is, but it tend to be leaning a little bit toward the guy that wants to lead but doesn't know quite how to yet. So this is why now we are looking deeper into this. And I'm going to tell you this, and I've said this before about other players. Jeffrey Simmons knows one thing, well, two things, and one thing for sure. This is a contract year for him. He understands that. This is a contract year for him. There's a reason why he chose, and I guarantee you, he was at home working out more than likely. He wasn't at home messing around or no, he was at home working out because he understands that this is the year that he needs to get back up to that bar that he set so he can get those millions of dollars that he wants for this next, because this will be his last contract. You see what the guy with Cincinnati's going through. Hell, Cincinnati got 2 players that one is sitting out, the first round draft pick, and the other may not report to camp because he wants a new deal.
How strange is that? Is it Shamar Stewart?
Yes.
For a rookie to hold out?
Yeah, and they say it's because of language within the contract, something only Cincinnati would probably do. But Jeffrey understands that this is a contract year, and he can say anything else and try to debunk it, and I would too if I was a player. But this is a contract year, and he understands that. So anytime he can spend, with his trainer working on his craft, he's going to do that. That's basic. And don't be surprised if we're in a situation next year where Jeff is not coming to camp.
615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. It's good to be back. If you have thoughts on Jeffrey Simmons, any particular Grease memories from watching the film?
Yes.
It is that day. So you can let us know at 615-737-1025. But speaking of Jeffrey Simmons, I'm glad that we talked about Jeffrey Simmons because we're going to do an exercise throughout the week. We're going to start it coming up next. This today's version includes Jeffrey Simmons. It's best case, worst case, Titans edition. And I'll explain that coming up next. 615-737-1025. This week's Nashville's best deal is Body Rock. Plank, lunge, twist, and push your limits with Body Rock's dynamic muscle sculpting Pilates-inspired classes designed to rock your body to the core. Get half off a $50 gift card now with theGameNashville.com/deals to use at any of Body Rock's 4 Nashville locations while supplies last.
Louis Riddick. This is the greatest soundbite. This is what everybody's talking about right here. We were all wondering, like, what's he going to do between now and the first snap of training camp?
It's been good. From growing, learning, especially being with the vets, getting our timing down. So I'm excited for the summer.
What's your plan for the next 5 to 6 weeks before you report to camp and when you gather with your receivers and some of the other quarterbacks and go over things just to kind of refresh everybody?
Just work out, stay in the playbook, and throw the out the ball.
All right.
I like it.
Don't you?
I do. I do.
Kind of like seeing this right now.
That's fun.
And if you're a Titan fan, you got to be fired up.
That was Rich Eisen on Cam Ward. Rich Eisen loves him some Cam Ward. I don't think there is a national NFL personality who talks more about Cam Ward than Rich Eisen. Maybe Kyle Brandt on Good Morning Football. He's a big Cam Ward guy. But Rich Eisen, you can always count on him talking about Cam Ward. So we're going to do an exercise this week called Best Case, Worst Case, Titans Edition. And actually, before I explain that, Adam from Portland is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Adam, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Adam, hope your vacation was nice, man. So I think Greece is like an American guilty pleasure, like throughout. I think everybody loves it. If you don't love it, there's something like personally hurt and missing in your life if you can't enjoy Greece.
Amen.
So, hey, and I was in it in high school, man. Like, so I'm telling you, there's a lot of people with that stuff on their iPods. They're just not talking about it. But
Hold up.
So,
You were in it, Adam?
Yeah, I was in it in high school. We put it on in Robertson County.
Okay.
We put it on in 2005.
Okay, do tell. What was it? Were you Kanicki? Were you Danny? Who were
No.
you?
I was Sonny. I was the one that got drunk at prom. I got drunk at prom and was chasing the girl around. Yeah, it was so much fun though too, putting that on, dude. Like if you ever get if I ever have an opportunity to see somebody like T-Pack or somebody off Broadway doing it, I go to it because I know those guys are going to have a lot of fun doing it, so we'll probably enjoy it. But I am calling about Jeff because I heard D-Mace just say something. He's like, hey, there's a chance he could hold out next year. Would that mean that if you were still wanting to get value for Jeff D-Mace, would you try to move him right now or try to move him next year before he becomes a problem? Like, I don't know what that would mean, but that's very interesting to me.
Thank you for the call, Adam.
Thank you for the call, Adam. I'm not sure the Titans are looking to move him this year. One, because unless you're getting players back today that can play now, Brian Callahan's job is on the line, and he can't afford to lose good players right now. Now, after the season's done, maybe Jeff has a tremendous season. He's still under contract. Maybe you can try to get a little bit more for him. But I wouldn't rule it out that something may happen during the season. If the Titans aren't where they need to be or where they want to be, then there's a potential move of some players like they did last season. Was it last season, Willie, or the season before that when they traded Henry? Not traded Henry, but Byard, and it was Byard in the middle of the season.
Right.
And then D-Hop, they got rid of D-Hop too in a trade. So that can potentially happen. But if the Titans are still in it and they're looking to be a good team and the quarterback is developing, then that may happen the next following off season. Not during the season, not during this season. That's something that may happen, as mini camps get ready to start, and then you start to see, well, Jeffrey is holding out because he wants a new car. And listen, he wouldn't be wrong for doing that. I'm not saying this is like something bad in Jeffrey Simmons. No, he wouldn't be wrong in doing it. If he has a great season or a season that he had 2 seasons ago, then he should warrant more money. But that's going to put the Titans in a dilemma where, now are we really seeking out a deal? Either we do it before or we do it after. Which one are we going to roll the dice and hope that he has a okay season and maybe it's a little bit easier to move him? Or if he has a great season, and you got to pay him, are you willing to give him that much money?
So,
Adam,
yes.
I said this last week while you were gone, and I'm standing by it because all of what D-May said is correct. We did an exercise of who do you think will be. Do you think that the following players will be on the team when the new stadium opens in 2027? And we think it's less than 50-50 that Jeffrey Simmons will even be on the team at that point, regardless of what happens. So therefore, I'm of the belief that if you're Mike Borgonzi, I would shop him around. I would see what you could get. His trade value is only going to go down from now until then. So especially if D-Mace, your scenario comes out with contract disputes and things like that, then I would try to get value while I could now because you're going to get more now. You're not. I hate to just dump him for like a 3rd round pick or a 2nd round pick when you could maybe get more today. But that's my thinking.
Mhm.
But I'm just putting it out there.
So let's actually start with Jeffrey Simmons. I was going to start with Cam Ward, but since we're talking about Jeffrey Simmons, let's start with Jeffrey Simmons. So throughout the week, we're going to do this exercise. Best case, worst case, Titans edition. And each day, we're going to talk about one offensive player or position group and one defensive player or position group. So surprise, today we're doing Cam Ward and Jeffrey Simmons. So we want all of you to participate as well at 615-737-1025. Your best case and worst case scenarios for these players or position groups that we're going to unveil throughout the week. And be realistic, people. For example, don't call or text and say, best case scenario, Cam Ward leads the Titans to a Super Bowl win, and he is named Super Bowl MVP.
But that's the best case.
That would be the best case.
That would technically be the best case, but let's be realistic, people, as we're doing this. So let's start with Jeffrey Simmons, since we've been talking so much about him at the start of the show. So for me, when I'm thinking about these things, I'm thinking about them statistically. You don't have to think about them statistically. You can think about them any way you want. So I want to thank CBS Sports HQ for this, by the way, because remember, we've been talking about the Titans defense and the yards allowed versus the points allowed and the discrepancy. And I stumbled across this the other day from CBS Sports HQ. So I want to thank them very much for answering a question I have been wondering for a very long time. The Titans were the first team to rank both bottom 3 in scoring defense and top 3 in total defense since the 1960 Chicago Bears. Derek Mason, how many teams were in the NFL in 1960?
Maybe a handful.
13. A baker's dozen.
That's a handful right there.
A baker's dozen. The Titans were the first team since 1960 to rank both bottom 3 in scoring defense and top 3 in total defense. So I'm glad that I finally have the numbers to back that up. So it's been a long time since the Titans defense, well, any defense did what the Titans defense did last season. So with Jeffrey Simmons, this according to PFF, his pass rush grade last season was a career high. He tallied 45 quarterback pressures, including 5 sacks. To me, that number, the sacks, is what sticks out. For me, a best case scenario for Jeffrey Simmons on the field is he needs to have, I want to say, at least 8 sacks next season. If I think that Jeffrey Simmons is having a good season, a bounce back season, he needs to have at least 8 sacks. His career high is 8.5. That was in 2021. Since then, he has 7.5, 5.5, and 5. And per 17 games, that is an average of 7.1. So best case scenario for me, for Jeffrey Simmons on the field, is that he records at least 8 sacks next season. Now, you can talk about off the field. Maybe he develops into that leader that the Titans really want him to be, and we all are skeptical that he can become. But on the field, Willie Donick, my best case scenario for Jeffrey Simmons, at least 8 sacks.
I think that's a good measure, and we obviously hit this because Brian Callahan talked about specifically sacks last week and says we want more. And at the same time, as we've said for a long time, especially last year, it's not always just the sack number. But I think 8.5 is a good reasonable number, and it could mean that other guys are getting sacks. To me, the team sack number is the number one thing. And what does Jeffrey Simmons have to do with that? And if the team is getting a lot of sacks, then Jeffrey Simmons probably should have at least 8 in there for sure. So I think that's a good one. My best case scenario, I'm still saying, is you trade him for a first round pick and a second round pick.
So your best case scenario is that Jeffrey Simmons isn't on the team anymore.
Well, he's not going to be on the team the next time the team's good.
That's fair.
That's how I look at it. And so, like, we did this exercise, try to find 6 players that you know for sure are going to be on the team in 2027 when the new stadium opens. And you're going to be hard pressed to come up with 6. It's a sad exercise, honestly. And when you look at the age of Jeffrey Simmons, when he, he'll be 30 that year. If he's still on the team, that is kind of a best case scenario. If he's still 30 and playing well, that would be awesome. But I don't know. I mean, usually most players start to decline at that point. So I stay with my original statement.
Derek, your best case for Jeffrey
The
Simmons.
best case scenario is that, he has a great season and he's here for the long run. They find a way to work out a contract. That's my best case scenario for Jeffrey Simmons, because I think if he has a Jeffrey Simmons type of season that we saw him have when he was at his best, then that means I think the team's going to be better, which means Brian is coming back another year, which means there's some continuity going into the next following year. So that's best case scenario for me. Worst case scenario is that Jeffrey plays well, but they still trade him. I think that's worst case scenario. You're still able to get something for him. And you go that route. But I think on both, whether it be my worst case or my best case scenario, I think the Titans still benefit, and Jeffrey still benefits from both scenarios.
615-737-1025. Your best and worst case, I should say, scenarios for Jeffrey Simmons. We'll also do the same exercise for Cam Ward. Willie and I will share our worst case scenarios for Jeffrey Simmons on the other side. 615-737-1025. Also be listening in the next segment, because at the end of that segment, I have something to give away. So be listening to that. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game.
All right, let's talk about swimming a little bit. It is the summertime, and unfortunately, I won't be talking. Well, hey, it's life. We all love to swim in the swimming pool or the lake or whatever, but I'm talking about swimming with a little bit of credit card debt, or financially swimming a little bit. You're trying to tread water. You're trying to figure out where to go. You got big credit card bills, high interest. You're not alone. A lot of people get into that situation. Loan Pronto, if you're a homeowner, can offer a really good solution for you, and that is to use the cash that you have available to you with your home equity. Your home equity is yours, so you can use that as you need it. Get cash out to consolidate your debt down to one low monthly payment, and you can be in a much, much better financial situation. So call Loan Pronto now. They're A+ rated by the BBB. They've got nearly 2,500 5-star Google reviews. So call and ask them about their rapid equity loan program, 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. That's 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Get debt relief now, loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781 on approved credit, NMLS consumeraccess.org.
Well, it's funny, right? Stats can be real misleading, and I think that's what my insight as an analyst is. If you look at the total defense by yards per game, they're number 2 in the NFL from last year. Pass yards and obviously rushing yards allowed. That was good statistically, but if you look at scoring defense, the only thing that matters, how many points you give up, they're 3rd worst in the NFL. So how can you be so good in total yards per game, but so bad in points per game? And points per game is what I care about. And that right there means you got to stop giving up touchdowns. You can hold up not that many yards, but on 3rd down, you let up a 7-yard or a 6-point, 7-point touchdown as opposed to a field goal. That comes down to rush and coverage. You need guys on 3rd down to get stops. L'Jarius Sneed should be healthier this year. They paid a lot of money for him to show up in the secondary. I know Amani Hooker has been a consistent player for them in the secondary, and Jeffrey Simmons should be back healthy. So on 3rd down, you got to think about pass rush. You got to think about guys who can cover. You got to keep points off the board. And the Titans are really good in one stat, but really bad in letting points up. So I think it should be a little better this year. Some of the key contributors being healthy, getting those stops on 3rd down, leading to field goals instead of touchdown.
That was ex-Titans cornerback Logan Ryan now doing some analysis for CBS Sports HQ, which is where I found that great stat that I've been looking for many, many months. Willie Donnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, talking best case, worst case. And we're starting with Jeffrey Simmons since he's been a hot topic of conversation. Derek gave his best case and his worst case. Willie and I gave our best case. So Willie and I are going to give our worst case. And mine sort of piggybacks off of what Willie was talking about. That Jeffrey Simmons has another down season by his standards, 5 sacks or less. And one thing that I noticed on Spot Track, that the Titans have a potential out in Simmons's contract after this season. So I guess the worst case scenario would be that Jeffrey Simmons doesn't play well. Maybe other teams get a sense that his leadership qualities are not up to snuff, and he devalues himself so that the Titans can't get that 1st-round pick that Willie is hoping for Jeffrey Simmons, and they either have to give him away or they move on from him and cut bait. That would be the worst-case scenario for me, Willie.
I would agree. I have a very similar version. I go back to Harold Landry, and give me credit, I was saying it at the time, that I would have researched the trade, not last year, but the year before, for Harold Landry, when the same year that they traded Kevin Byard. I was saying shop around Landry while you can. And what ends up happening, they hang on to him. They can't find a trade. It's too late. His cap hit is too high. They release him, and he is snapped up immediately for a lesser price by the Patriots. So you get nothing in return for that asset. For a team that has been on record as saying they want more draft picks. They need more draft picks. So that would be worst case scenario to me, is that, like you said, Adam, Jeffrey Simmons has something else physically that keeps him from being a great player. And by the end of the year, you're wrestling with, are we paying him way more than his value right now? And he has no trade value. So that to me is the worst case scenario. The Harold Landry situation. Not that you would have gotten a 1st-round pick for Landry or anything, but I think you could have gotten a decent pick at the right time. Not last year, but the year before.
One texter says the best case scenario for Simmons is that he is rejuvenated and has 2 more years of good play before trading/retiring. Worst case scenario is becomes the company on Stillman and Company. Can you imagine?
That would be hilarious.
Can you imagine?
I am trying to, because they lost, and I don't know how, because you're right, Willie. Maybe they should have pushed for more of a trade for Harold Landry 2 years ago when they had an opportunity, to potentially get something for him. But they chose not to. But I wonder if losing him through I guess it is free agency. Or did they cut him?
They cut him.
Well, they cut him. So
there were the reports.
Yeah.
There were the reports that the Titans had granted him and his representation permission to seek a trade, which is usually a precursor to, well, nobody's trading for you, so we're going to cut you. And that's ultimately what happened. And then it felt like only a few days later, he was snapped up by Mike Vrabel and the New England Patriots.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out if they would receive a compensatory pick the next following year, but they didn't lose him via free agency. They chose to cut him. So that's not going to happen.
It looks like it was 2 days after he was released by the Titans, he was signed by the Patriots.
Yeah, so they're not going to get it. You know, yes, I guess from that standpoint, you know, you want to try to be proactive and see if you can facilitate a trade, but I'm not doing that unless the season is at a point where, you know, we're not going to be a playoff team and is evident. Then I would be looking to move Jeffrey Simmons. I guess that's worst case scenario. Then I will be looking to move Jeffrey Simmons. But if not, if he's playing well and you're winning, that's the dilemma you're in, because you know in the offseason there's going to be a contract dispute. There will. It may not, you know, spill out and be ugly, but there will be a contract dispute where, you know, I want more money. No, you work under the old continue to work on under the old contract, or we're trying to facilitate a contract or a trade. So that is coming down the pipe, best believe, unless the Titans just say, you know what, forget it. We're going to get Jeffrey what he wants. We want to keep him here. But you're right. If it's looking like it's not a season, then try to move him, because then you'll be able to get something for him. If not, I think it's going to be hard on the back end to get something for him. But again, if you're having a good season, man, that's what you want, and you try to find a way to make it work out before the season ends.
And Willie, as our friend Elliot Freeman likes to say, that when a team is trying to make a trade, the other GMs, they don't throw a life preserver, they throw an anvil, and that's exactly what I feel like the worst case scenario would be. I was thinking back to Kevin Byard, because the Titans traded Kevin Byard to the Philadelphia Eagles. They were 2-4 at the time of that trade, and the Titans received safety Terrell Edmonds, who was just a warm body, a 2024 5th and 6th round pick in exchange for Byard. That was the trade. Now, if I recall correctly, Byard at that point was starting to trend down a little bit. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, I mean, he still was playing good, but yeah, he was trending the other way. Exactly,
the ball hawk
with a high price.
Exactly, and
so
Willie, we have been talking about this. We have been talking about either trade him before the season, because we're like, man, you may want to trade him before the season. So everybody went crazy, and they end up trading him in the middle of the season.
I would say, Willie, that that doesn't. I mean, I have to think back to how I felt 2 years ago, but that seems like not great value for Kevin Byard, even a maybe diminished Kevin Byard. So I guess that would be the worst case scenario, is that Simmons struggles out of the gate. The Titans also struggle out of the gate, and they ultimately move him for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, well, and I actually think that they did fairly well to get what they got for Byard under the circumstances, because I think there would have been a lot of players who, with his contract, that would have been cut the summer before. And there was a whole uproar, right, where they asked him to take a pay cut. It got out, and it became a big, big story. Kevin Byard was very outspoken. You remember he was talking to Taylor Lewan on his podcast, and he did some interviews. But the bottom line is, when you get to that age and you're getting that money at safety, you don't have a lot of value. So I think they did well to get that, to get a couple of the draft picks. I don't know if those have turned into anything, but it's better than getting nothing. But I don't think teams are proactive enough. I think the Patriots through the years, remember D-Mace, they used to do this. Richard Seymour would be one. Lawyer Malloy, where you trade the guy before he starts to devalue, you get better trade return. And everybody kind of goes wild, and you say, why would you trade this guy? But if you feel like you have the and it's easy to say when you were the Patriots and you had Tom Brady, right? And you had good teams. But I think oftentimes you get into that dilemma. You just stated it really well, D-Mace. You're like, I can't replace this guy. I don't have a backup anywhere as good as Harold Landry or Kevin Byard. What am I going to do without this guy? But I think if you're the GM, you have to look past that and say, you know what? I have to do what's best for the team, and it may put my job in jeopardy, but I'm not going to win if I keep these guys. That's the hard decision you have to make. We're not going to win if we keep these guys.
Yeah.
I have to try to get maximum value back. I don't think teams do that enough. They go to your side and say, well, let's dig in. Let's keep them for one more year, and let's see if we can have a bounce back.
Well, it's Barry said it best, and I think this is how a lot of GMs, if not all, ultimately operate. My goal and my responsibility is to do what's best for the team, the organization, not one in particular player. Now we may, try a little bit harder if it's that right person, but ultimately I have to do what's best for the organization. And that's what the Titans, they may find themselves in that situation this season, entering into next season. They found themselves in that position before with Kevin Byard and Derrick Henry. They chose to hold on to Derrick Henry, and they chose to trade away Kevin Byard and DeAndre Hopkins. So whichever way they choose to go moving forward in regards to Jeffrey Simmons, it's all going to be predicated on whether they're winning or losing. Basically, if they're losing, you're going to see them try to move some guys, because what do they want? They want picks, they want development, they want retain. None of these guys, it's a few Brinker drafted. None of these guys, Borgonzi, well, I guess if this past year's class, Borgonzi drafted, but before that, these ain't his guys. So if he can move some of these veterans at the trade deadline because they're not doing well, best believe they're going to try to do that.
615-737-1025. We will do best case, worst case with Cam Ward. Coming up next, 615-737-1025. I did say that I do have something to give away, which is what I'm going to do right now. If you are caller number 2, David James, if you are caller number 2 at 615-737-1025, you will win a pair of tickets to see Incubus at Bridgestone Arena next Wednesday, June 25th. Incubus performing Morning View in its entirety, plus the hits with special guest Manchester Orchestra and Paris Jackson. 615-737-1025. Caller number 2 will receive a pair of tickets to see Incubus next Wednesday at Bridgestone Arena. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063 The Game. D-Mace, Fingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Some breaking Cam Ward news to pass along, courtesy of Variety. Tubi picks up, quote, 0-star, the Cam Ward story, end quote, 6-part docuseries about this year's NFL draft #1 pick. First of all, I have so many streaming services. I have no idea what Tubi is. I don't know how you find Tubi. Sounds like a character on some show my son likes to watch. But Tubi picks up 0-star, the Cam Ward story, a 6-part docuseries about this year's NFL draft #1 pick. It will debut in September, again, on Tubi, which is something I am now familiar with. A quote from the director: Cam's journey isn't just about football. It's about heart, belief, and the power of second chances. This series gives viewers an unfiltered look at a young man who was told no at every stage, yet refused to quit. From backyard games in West Columbia to draft night glory, Cam's story unfolds across 6 episodes filled with raw emotion, defining moments, and behind-the-scenes access. It's a modern hero's journey and a blueprint for anyone who's ever felt overlooked, end quote.
Well, I mean, Tubi is it's a streaming service. Obviously, it has a bunch of movies just like the rest of these streaming services do, but Tubi has some really interesting movies on there where the acting is like Tubi-ish, which isn't great, I guess.
Would you rank Tubi-ish acting above or below Hallmark movie acting?
Oh, it's definitely below Hallmark.
Oh, wow.
Oh, definitely.
It's definitely bad.
I love Hallmark.
I know you do. That's why I asked.
So yeah, that's Tubi. So, but I will watch it. I will
Absolutely.
watch it. Yeah. I will watch it.
But how do we watch it if we don't have Tubi?
You just get Tubi.
Well, according
to be or not to be.
Okay, first of all, Dylan in Antioch says Tubi is thankfully free. So
yes,
Tubi is free.
Yes.
Oh, it is.
Yes.
Well,
One texter says, seriously, you don't know Tubi? You are behind the times. Let me tell you all of the streaming services I have, unnamed texter. I've got YouTube TV and Disney Plus and Paramount Plus and Peacock and Apple TV and Max. I have enough streaming services. I don't need another one.
Yes,
but thankfully, Tubi is free. So I will download Tubi Dooby Doo to watch this program. It's called 0-star, the Cam Ward story, a 6-part docuseries that will debut in September. So speaking of Cam Ward, let's get back to first best case, worst case. And I think we could all agree. Worst case scenario for Cam Ward: doesn't pan out, struggles, maybe not as poorly as Will Levis struggled, but proves everybody who thought he was a reach at #1 overall correct. And at some point, the Titans bench him, and maybe Brandon Allen has to start a game or two. Like, I think we can all agree that's the worst case scenario, that Cam Ward does not live up to the hype. So I'm more interested in what the best case scenario is, realistically, for Cam Ward this season. Again, realistically. So here's how I went about this. To me, I think the best case scenario is that Cam Ward wins Offensive Rookie of the Year. 4 of the past 6 Associated Press Offensive Rookie of the Year winners were quarterbacks: Jaden Daniels, CJ Stroud, Justin Herbert, and Kyler Murray. And I went back and I averaged their passing yards, completion percentage, touchdowns, and interceptions in those seasons to get a baseline of what I think Cam Ward could do. Roughly 3,900 passing yards. I don't think he gets to that. Roughly 3,900 passing yards, a completion percentage of 66%, 25 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. I think that would be more than best case if Cam Ward puts up those numbers and wins Offensive Rookie of the Year. So I'll actually shoot a little bit lower. And Connor Orr of Sports Illustrated did a story recently where he made 100 predictions about the upcoming season. And he said that Cam Ward will pull up the following numbers during his rookie season: 3,124 yards, a 63% completion rate, 18 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 225 rushing yards, and 3 rushing touchdowns. So I'm going to say best case scenario is that Cam Ward wins Offensive Rookie of the Year, which quarterbacks have been doing more often than not lately. And I'll say his numbers are in between what Connor Orr predicted and what the averages of those 4 winners are. So let's call it 3,500 passing yards, a 64% completion percentage. Let's call it 20 passing touchdowns and 10 interceptions. That, I would say, is my best case scenario. Willie Donick, what do you think?
I think to get those numbers, he's got to play the games. So that's my first thing is best case scenario, play 14 or more games. If he can play 14 or more, I give that a success. And if he plays the games, you should get some yards. That's the whole point of fantasy football is we don't really care about the efficiency in fantasy football. Just give my guy the ball. If he gets it a lot, he's going to get yards, and yards equal points. And I know this is not the end game for winning NFL games, but if he's out there, that's a good thing. He's gaining experience. He's not getting too beat up, and the yards should be there. So whether it's 3,100, 3,500, 18 touchdowns or 20 touchdowns, I would rather not get pinned down to those. But if he plays 14 or more games and he can have a passer rating, say around 90, let's say 90 or more passer rating, and a QBR that is way, way better than Will Levis's. Will Levis's, I think, last year was in the 30s. Let's say Cam Ward's QBR is in the 40s. I think that's a good rookie season. I don't know if that's best case, but that's more realistic. That's what I'm going to go with.
You were giving Will Levis too much credit. His QBR last season was 27.8. He did not even make it to 30. So let's say Cam Ward had a QBR, let's call it 45. That would put him last season near the bottom of the NFL, just below Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott was 45.3 last season. Caleb Williams was 46.7. Anthony Richardson was 47.4. So that might be the range, but it would be a step up from Will Levis. I mean, at this point, best case scenario would be he actually looks the part of a starting quarterback, unlike Will Levis. But
right, and so the numbers should fall in line with that.
Yes.
So I want to have the feeling more than the numbers of, hey, he made it through, he had some moments, and he avoided disaster, and he looks like he's on his way. Whatever those numbers say, and we can tweak them. I'll try to come up with a better pinpoint what I'm looking for range-wise in those two categories, the QBR and the passer rating, because they're two different things. But if he can be somewhat middle of the road, let's say the middle 10 of league average, and not in the bottom third, to me, that's a big thumbs up. But playing the 14 games is huge for me, 14 or more.
Now, I looked at minus Caleb Williams numbers. So the number I'm going to give at the end, you need to add some yardage to it. But I looked at it minus Caleb Williams numbers because I didn't have them directly in front of me. But over the last 10 years, talking 2015 to 25 or 24, minus Caleb Williams numbers, all but one first-round draft pick with quarterbacks. Now, you got to take Myles Garrett out there because he was the number 1 pick in 2007. But if you look at all those numbers, minus the Caleb Williams number, the average yardage really is like 23 to 2,500 yards. Now, we know that's not going to, in today's football, 2,500 yards is not going to work unless your defense is playing extraordinarily well. And you're running the ball just as well as you're playing defense. 2,300 yards is not going to get you far, but that's taken into account. Joe Burrow missed some of the season. Jared Goff didn't play much his rookie season. So I'm just looking at those numbers based upon that. But to me, because of the way the NFL has sort of elevated itself at the quarterback position, you look at the last 3, Trevor Lawrence, CJ Stroud, and Caleb Williams. All 3 of those guys threw for 3,500 yards. Bryce Young, who was the number 1 pick in 23, only threw for 2,800. That was just that was a whole debacle there. We know about Carolina. So to me, he needs to be around that 35, 3,200 yards, 20 touchdowns. And I think he's going to have at least 8 to 10 interceptions. I think that will happen. Because let me see, even CJ Stroud ended up having 5. Bryce had 10. I need to look what Caleb had, but Trevor had 12. And Joe Burrow had 5, but he didn't play the whole season. Kyler Murray had 12. So the interceptions are going to be there, but he needs to be in the mid-20s when it comes to touchdown, 32 to 3,500 yards. But all of that means nothing if the team, if you don't see development in the team as he's developing as well.
And to Willie's point about the feeling, that is an important part
and that's
of it.
just number wise,
right? And the feeling is intangible, and well, somewhat intangible, because you can look at the numbers and you can look at the numbers and say this guy's got it or this guy doesn't. But the one thing we talked about last month, we did this exercise where we looked at the number of wins number 1 overall rookie quarterbacks have, and with the exception of Andrew Luck, they all struggle. The wins are probably not going to be there. So judging Cam Ward by how many wins the Titans have this season, it's not the right way to go about it. A lot of people are going to do that because a lot of people associate winning with quarterbacks. So there will be people that say, well, the Titans only won 5 games this year. Cam Ward must not be very good. But if Cam Ward, first of all, 5 wins would be 2 more than they had last year. So that is an improvement. But even if the Titans win 5 games next season, again, an improvement. If Cam Ward shows that he has what it takes to be a starting NFL quarterback, he has a feel for the game. You know, he doesn't make too many mistakes. When he does make mistakes, unlike his predecessor, he learns from those mistakes. The wins are secondary to all of that. So best case scenario, as I said, for me would be winning AP Offensive Rookie of the Year and putting up some gaudy numbers. But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that Cam Ward could throw for 3,000 yards.
And what's the context, right? Sometimes if you're way behind, you can on certain Sundays rack up some pretty big. And Will Levis did this in a couple of games last year where his stats looked okay.
Yes,
but he got some good padded stats at the end of games where they were out of it, and the defense was a little looser, etc. Let's look at a case study in Drake May last year. How many games do you think Drake May started last year?
I want to say
because we would agree Drake
13?
May feels pretty good. He played in 13, started 12. Okay. So we would say that the Patriots feel pretty good about Drake May right now, right?
Yes.
And I think the Titans are sort of in the same place the Patriots were in last year. You kind of know you're not going to have a lot of weapons around a rookie quarterback, and you're hoping to not get destroyed. He was 3-9, Drake May as a starter. He had 15 touchdown passes and 10 interceptions, a 58.6 QBR, and an 88.1 passer rating. Not great shakes, not bad. Or this is why I say that the numbers may not always tell you. It was more of a feeling. By the end of the year, people were like, okay, I see enough in Drake May. Yeah. I think Cam Ward's numbers could be pretty similar to that.
Yes, and when you look at the numbers, and I know I sort of gave this is what he needs to be at in order like that. On average, this is what the other quarterbacks have done: 30-something hundred yards, 20 touchdowns, somewhere in between there, and then the interceptions are going to be double digits, but you want them to be double digits and like 10 or 11, not 20 something. But I think when you're talking about matching the numbers up statistically with the wins, you need to look no further than what Baltimore did in 2018. Lamar didn't start the first half of the season. Joe Flacco did. But Lamar came in and ended up going 6-1. But if you look at the numbers are not great. But what's happening? They're winning football games, and he has a surrounding cast. Defense is really good run game.
Yeah,
And
they had a good team.
Yeah,
They
they're
had a good
not
team.
putting much on him. So that
Do we think the Titans have anything close to that?
no, it's
what
not
he had last year. That was a playoff team.
That was a playoff team. They end up losing in the first round of the playoffs, but that was a playoff team. But before that, they were not a playoff team. Before Lamar went in, they had only won what? They were 4 and I think 4 and 5. They were on the border of being a playoff team, but they were not great. When Lamar came in, they rattled off. They won 6 of the last 7. But the Titans, this is why I said it's going to be important for that defense to take another step up and for them to identify that second guy on off at the receiver position, because I think the offensive line is going to be good. This team has the potential. They do. They have the potential to develop, all while the quarterback isn't having gaudy numbers. That may happen if the defense, and I know it's a big if, and a lot of it rides on 2 people, Jeffrey Simmons and Snead. It rides on those 2 guys. One guy needs to come back from an injury, and another guy needs to play up to that level that he set a few seasons ago. If that defense gets the way that Denard Wilson wants it, then the numbers, the wins, and the stats may not match up, but you may see a development in the team per se. So that may happen. So that's the template that I'm looking for. Like, listen, the numbers, Cam may not throw for 35, 4,000 yards. He may not have, 30 touchdowns. He may throw for 2,800 yards, 3,000 yards, and have 15 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, or 20 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. But they're winning football games. That's essentially, that's the best case scenario, I think, for me with Cam Ward.
One texter says, Chuck says, I'm going to go off the deep end here with Cam Ward. He will have the best NFL numbers he's ever had this year.
Nice.
Good one. I like that.
Clever. One texter says, I have to say, Adam had some Jared in him when ranting about his online services. First of all, how dare you?
That's a curse word around here.
We'll talk to Jared at the end of the show, of course. 615-737-1025. If you have thoughts on Cam Ward, Jeffrey Simmons, best case, worst case, let us know. 615-737-1025. But coming up next, man, the Stanley Cup final has been awesome. And there's something happening in the Stanley Cup final that's warming my cold, dark heart. It's not actually that cold or dark, but it's warming my heart to see, because it brings to mind something that we all love as sports fans. And we'll discuss that next. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063 The Game.
You're the first player in NHL history to score 5 goals in a Stanley Cup final on 2 different teams. What would a young Brad Marchand from 2011 say about this Brad Marchand in 2025?
Man, that guy's good looking. Probably be it. It's just how it plays out sometimes, it just sometimes you get balances, sometimes you don't, but definitely he'd be grateful to be in this opportunity and have another opportunity to be in the finals and be part of a really good team for sure.
Your story sad to tell.
That was Brad Marchand after the Florida Panthers defeated the Edmonton Oilers on Saturday night to take a 3-2 series lead in the Stanley Cup Final. Game 6 tomorrow in Sunrise. The Panthers attempting to go back-to-back on home ice, which, by the way, hasn't happened in nearly 40 years. That was the last time a team won back-to-back Stanley Cup championships, clinching the championship on home ice in both years. But as I've been watching Brad Marchand have a hell of a Stanley Cup final, he has 6 goals in the Stanley Cup final. And these aren't just garbage goals. These are some awesome goals, highlight reel worthy goals. Brad Marchand turned Matthias Ekholm inside out off of a face-off just the other day. He's been having an outstanding Stanley Cup final. I'm wondering if he could be the favorite for the Conn Smythe Trophy. But there is nothing more that sports fans love than the savvy veteran out-dueling Father Time. I believe it was Brian Curtis of The Ringer who coined the phrase, "the old guy still got it," in terms of stories that sports writers love to tell. And he's absolutely right. There is no story that sports writers love to tell, and I've told a few, than the player near the end of his career, in the twilight of his career, having an impact performance in a championship or a career year, a career renaissance, whatever you want to call it. Here are some numbers on Brad Marchand, who, by the way, is 37 years old. He's very old. 37 years old. He is the first player in NHL history to score 5+ goals in multiple Stanley Cup final series with different teams. He went to the Stanley Cup final and won it as a rookie in 2011 with the Boston Bruins. And now he's back and he's trying to win it again for the first time in nearly 15 years. His 6 goals are the most in the Stanley Cup final by any player 35 or older. So an historic Stanley Cup final performance for Brad Marchand. So this got me thinking, and I want all of you to participate as well at 615-737-1025 in honor of Brad Marchand. What is your favorite "the old guys still got it" moment in sports? And I will tell you the first one that popped into my head. And if Robbie Stanley is listening, he's going to love this response. Ray Allen, Game 6 of the 2013 NBA Finals, Heat Spurs. Allen hits a 3-pointer from the corner with 5.2 seconds left to force overtime. The Heat come back and win that game. Now, as I was looking at the box score, that was Ray Allen's only 3 of the game. He had 9 points in 41 minutes. But as we know, Ray Allen, a Hall of Fame marksman from 3, hitting the biggest shot of his life. I believe he was either 37 or 38 years old when he hit that shot. But those are the stories we love. So I want yours as well. So 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, when I ask you for your favorite "this old guy still got it" moment in sports, what comes to mind?
There's a couple of really obvious ones I think we could that I'll save. I'm guessing the listeners will bring these up. The tennis in general has a lot of them. Like, I think there was a resurgent Jimmy Connors for a while, and of course this is all relative because back in the day it seemed like when you turned 30 or 31, it really was hard to keep it going. Jimmy Connors had a great resurgence in the early 80s. And he was still going in 1990. So there was different resurgences of Jimmy Connors. But I'm going to go with David Ortiz. You mentioned Brad Marchand's 37. David Ortiz, remember in 2004 when he was 28, had all those heroics for the Red Sox in the famous run in 2004 where they're down 3-0 against the Yankees, came back and won the World Series. He was awesome for that team. Had some really good years in between. Had a dip, though, a couple of years before his age 37 year, which was 2013. That was the whole Boston Marathon bomber, right? Where he gets on the microphone during the season and says, "This is our bleeping city," etc. And the Red Sox kind of unexpectedly won the World Series that year. He had some huge moments in the postseason at age 37. A big home run in Game 2 at Fenway Park. You might recall the image of Torrey Hunter trying to jump into the bullpen and make the catch, and he ends up going head over heels into the bullpen. And the crazy Boston-esque security guard standing there is going crazy. And then he went in the World Series that year against the Cardinals. David Ortiz went, I believe, 11 for 16 in the World Series.
We didn't have to bring all that up.
Well, sorry about that. It was because it was against David's Cardinals. That's what happened. He had in the postseason, he had 353 in the 16 games, but in the World Series alone, it was just incredible. I think he was 11 for 16. He hit like 688 in the series. So that was, to me, the old guy still's got it.
Man, I think, I mean, first sort of thought would be, does Tiger Woods classify? Or
yes,
would he be,
that's one that popped in my head when he won the
like
Masters.
the Masters. Was it so much because of the injuries? Because what was he? 40? Was he in his early 40s or late 30s?
And he had been through the ringer, right? He had been embarrassed publicly. All of the
that
stuff.
was 2019, correct?
Everything.
Yes. And people thought Tiger was done, with all the surgeries and the personal life, and he comes back and he wins the Masters.
I believe he was either 44 or 45.
Okay, so that
absolutely counts.
Yeah, that's the first one that comes to mind. The second one, Willie, you will remember this. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, age 38 years old, 37, 38, 85. He won the league. I believe he won league MVP, or he won the next previous year, but he won NBA Finals MVP, and he averaged damn near 30 points and almost double-digit rebounds per game in that 85 run, and they won the championship. So he was another guy where people thought, at the age of 38, 37, 38, he was done. And he ended up not only winning the championship for the Lakers, but he ended up winning the series MVP. So
good one.
2 ones.
The other one that came to mind for me, and I'm not sure if this qualifies, was Tom Brady winning the Super Bowl with the Buccaneers in 2020.
No question that counts.
It was.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Just because
that's an obvious one that I thought for sure would come up.
Right, because at that point, he wasn't, I mean, his last years in New England, he was still a good player. He maybe he wasn't Tom Brady, but it was also, you also had the subplot of, well, was it Tom Brady or Bill Belichick? Who was the mastermind of the New England Patriots dynasty? And I believe that has been answered loud and clear over the past several years. But Tom Brady winning the Super Bowl with the Buccaneers in 2020, he won the Super Bowl MVP award. He went 18 years between his first and most recent championship MVP, which according to ESPN was the most by any athlete in American sports history, between his or her first championship MVP and most recent 18 years.
Okay. This is what I think is a key ingredient to this question. And I don't know if I tracked Brad Marchand's career well enough to know if this ever came up with him, because I think he's always been really good. But I think that when there's it's really hits with this storybook thing you're talking about, Adam. Where it really hits is if there's a period of time, at least some, where there's doubt if the guy can still do it, right? Because then to have the old guy still got it, there has to be a sense at one point where I don't know if he still got it.
Right.
But when you have a dip, like when Tom Brady lost to the Mike Vrabel Titans, I think there was a sense he might retire, right? He might be out of there. What's next? We don't know what's next. And then to have him come back and win the whole thing, that was big. I mentioned Ortiz had a couple of down years. We know Tiger, obviously, some down years. Kareem is a really good one. So we'd love to hear some other ones, 615-737-1025. But to me, that's a key ingredient. And Marchand, I don't know if he ever had a big dip.
It did. Okay. And this is why it's hard for me to lump football players in this. it's easier for me to do it with hockey players or an individual sport or basketball. Why? Because they play both ends of the they're playing offense and they're playing defense. So when I look at a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, not only he had to come down and score, but he had to play defense. When I look at a Marchand, not only is he trying to score, but he has to play defense as well. When you look at some of these individual sports, it's not just me on the offensive end, it's me on the defensive end too. So even though Tom Brady and because I even thought about Peyton Manning, like his arm was bad that last year, but they won the Super Bowl and he was a part of it. And one of his throws was one of the key throws of the game. I think it was either a touchdown or first. It might have been a touchdown to Demaryius Thomas or a first down, one of those key, because it was a low scoring game and it ended up being a touchdown. So when I look at something like that, I say, well, yeah, but but he has no impact on what the defense is doing. You see what I'm saying? So that's why I gravitate more toward either hockey, basketball, or an individual sport. Or baseball than I do sort of football.
It's a good point, Willie, about Marchand, because I was looking this up. Between 2016-17 and 2023-2024, he averaged 91.3 points per 82 games. He had 47 points in 61 games with the Bruins before being traded, but he was also injured when he was traded, if I recall correctly. So you weren't sure what
he had a concussion.
Right. You weren't sure what Brad Marchand you were going to get. I didn't expect this Brad Marchand at all. What he's been doing, as I said, he's not just cleaning up rebounds out there. He is turning defensemen inside out.
He's dominating, man.
So maybe he doesn't qualify as well as Tom Brady or Tiger Woods.
No, but he qualifies, no question, because the Bruins made the big decision to trade him because they thought his best days are over. Let's get something for him.
And that's the story.
They were in talks. That's the story.
That's the story, that the Bruins, he was a part of that team for so long, a leader on that team, and they weren't sure if he still had it or not. But then he goes to Florida and gets in that sunshine, and he's rejuvenated. And look at him now. David Jane says that he has a couple he wants to share too.
So obviously, as a Cardinals fan, Albert Pujols hitting 700, going for 700, was probably a big one, because obviously when he was in the Angels, he wasn't. When he went to the Angels back in 2011, he wasn't like the old Albert. But then, like his final year, he obviously hit, I think, 30 plus homers, and to reach 700, which not many people thought he was going to reach 700 homers all time, like and for his last couple of years, just because of how downgraded he went. And obviously for me as well as Vince Carter, when you saw him hit his bunnies at 40 years old, man, he still got it, man. He still got it.
Vince tried to hold on as long as possible, boy. He did. What was it, 20 years?
Yeah, 20-something years.
Yeah, man.
And that's the opposite of the old guy still got it. The old guy should probably stop trying to get it.
Yeah. That's like, hey, man, like, you're barely hitting rim, brother, but he's still getting it, man.
He still was. He was no longer, what did they call him? Half man, half amazing.
Yeah, half man, half amazing.
He was all man. He wasn't amazing. The amazing
sometimes
was
amazing.
God, Vince Carter played for such a long time.
Yeah.
He played until he was 43 years old. I don't remember those Atlanta years or that random Sacramento year at all. See, that's the problem. You never want to hang around too long.
Yeah, what people forget about the years that you spent with just other teams for like a season.
Right. So that's the opposite of the old guy still got it. But we want your thoughts on this. We have a lot of texts. We want more. 615-737-1025. You can also call us on our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. In honor of Brad Marchand and the historic Stanley Cup performance he is having for the Florida Panthers at age 37, what is your favorite old guy still got it moment in sports? Let us know. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game.
Happy Monday, everyone. This is Derek Mason. You heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff over at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting a resolution to shed some extra pounds only to face disappointment. But I got some answers for you. Got some solutions, because at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you and you only. They did it for me, so I know they will do it for you. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
D-Mace Fingin and Donick, 1025, 1063. The Game, talking old guys still got it. In honor of Brad Marchand, the Florida Panthers 1 win away from back-to-back Stanley Cup championships. 37 years old, Brad Marchand, having an outstanding Stanley Cup final for the Panthers. So it got me thinking about my and your, I want to hear your favorite old guy still got it moments. Let's go to Dale on our phone line, driven by Wilson County, Hunter.com. Dale, thanks for calling. Please go ahead. Dale, are you there, my friend?
Dale.
I'm Dale.
Oh, I'm sorry. It says Dale. Dell, I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
What about, you were talking about aging players who can still produce. What about Gordie Howe? He had to be approaching 50, would still put the books in the net. And whatever happens to that guy, I'll hang up, listen to your answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Dell. Gordie Howe. Gordie Howe, we did get some answers for Gordie Howe on our text line. Gordie Howe played until the ripe age of 51.
Wow. Goodness.
But I don't think he played on any great teams at that point, right? He was still playing and still doing fairly well, but I don't think he was like on a team that had a chance to win it.
No, he wasn't. He played in the WHA for several years and then latched onto the Hartford Whalers for a season at the end of his career before he retired. Gordie Howe is a answer that we have received on the text line. A lot of texts. Let's go back to Mike in Nolansville. Says Jack in the Masters in 1986 or Tiger in 2019 are the only two correct answers.
Wow, he's bullish, isn't he?
Well, you mentioned Tiger Woods in 2019.
I mentioned Tiger Woods in 2019. I think I don't think anyone expected that. And people thought, man, Tiger may actually be back, but then again, it ended up falling off the cliff for him again. He just couldn't overcome the injuries that he was having. But that year in the Masters, man, oh man, he proved that. Listen, I still got a little gas left in the tank. And end up winning the Masters. So, and then obviously Jack Nicholson.
Nicholas was 46. Yes. I mean, Jack Nicholson still got it too. He's still making movies, right?
Absolutely.
Jack Nicklaus was 46 when he won the Masters in 1986. One texter says
that was a big TV moment, that Jack Nicklaus thing for sure. Just like Tiger was a couple years ago, but that was huge.
One texter says Lionel Messi's recent World Cup win, as the old guys still got it. Let's see. Another one for Jack Nicklaus winning the 1986 Masters. Another texter says Kobe Bryant's 60-point last game.
Yeah, I thought about that, but that's not a championship game because I was watching that game.
Yeah,
intently.
I tend to associate this with winning a title. Yeah. One texter mentioned Kirk Gibson's home run in 1988.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one. But yeah, I guess that. Yeah, that is.
Kobe was off of 50 shots though.
Yeah, Kobe, and it wasn't a meaningful game.
Yeah,
I mean, it was meaningful in the sense that was his last game in the NBA. Because he retired right after that. But as far as like championship caliber, nah, that falls a little bit short.
Kirk Gibson wasn't really old. He was just injured. I don't know if I would at the time thinking he was the old. He played for several years after that. It's not like he was 40. On the moment. That was obviously an amazing moment. I don't know if that quite hits the notes on this one.
Justin on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Justin, thank you for calling. Please go ahead. Oh, Justin hung up. Oh, well. Call us back, Justin. Ty says, I think Tiger comes back and wins one more like this past U.S. Open.
Oh, nah. I think it's a wrap for Tiger.
Yeah, me too. Donovan and Franklin mentions Tom Brady winning in Tampa Bay. That one came to mind. As I went back and was reading the story about the genesis of the old guy still got it story, which was written by Brian Curtis, who writes about sports media for The Ringer. The subject of his story, this was written, I want to say in 2021, was Chris Paul making it to the NBA Finals with the Phoenix Suns, because there were a lot of the old guy still got it with Chris Paul, sort of like what Willie was talking about. He seemed washed up. His contract was onerous. But now look at Chris Paul playing for the NBA title.
But he didn't win a championship.
But he did not win the title.
I would put Steph Curry in there. Their last championship where people thought Steph was on the decline. And he led that team to a championship. So I know he's not in his 40s, but I mean, people thought he was on the decline. He and his team, and they ended up winning the championship that year. So I don't know how old. What would be the age limit? Is it pertaining? Is it based on sport?
It's a feel, right?
Yeah, or a feel.
I think you need to be at least 35 years old.
Okay, all right. Because 35 is different in each individual sport.
That is true. Maybe in baseball, Willie. Maybe in baseball you need to be 40 and above.
I would say definitely over 35 for sure in baseball. And there's different, like you said, there's different versions of 35. There's a pitcher. There's this. There's that. The different position might Because like if you're playing shortstop and you're still 35, 36, that's pretty impressive, right? If you're David Ortiz, so my David Ortiz may not be the best one from a physical standpoint. It was more everybody thought he might be done, and then he had the resurgence. But as a DH, right, he's just up there hitting, right? He's not out there playing in the field. And as D-May said, he's not, going offense to defense back and forth. So it's a sliding scale.
What about Cal Ripken?
Well, his thing was he was so consistent.
He was so consistent
every game.
But
I don't know if he never.
I'm not sure that qualifies.
Yeah, he's never had a downward spiral
because he was the Iron Man.
Yeah,
I guess that's good and bad. You never really declined. It was just always a steady pace with you. So I guess that's all right. He doesn't qualify, but for good reasons.
All right, Justin is back on our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hunter.com. Justin, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, thanks, guys. Hey, I don't know if this one will count, but we'll go with it. I'm born and raised in Nashville. Big Braves fan growing up. Willie, you might like this one. How about Julio Franco?
I don't know if Julio Franco ever had the big moment but that guy, when you say he still got it, he was still getting, he still looked like he could win a bodybuilding championship, and he was like 47, and he was still playing. He would be like the Chris Chelios, right? Getting way up into the high 40s and still playing.
By the way, one texter said Chris Chelios with the Red Wings.
Yeah, Chris Chelios wasn't he 47 when he was still playing, something like that?
I'll have to double check.
Would Julio be like the Yammer of baseball?
Yager's another
Yarmer
really
Yager is a good one. Thanks for the call, Justin.
Yeah. If you're just talking about keep playing at a really, really old age, you could probably have that feeling at some time of, hey, it's like a great individual game where a guy still scores a goal or gets a big hit. You're like, hey, the old guy still got it. That's a little lower than we're talking about doing it on the biggest stage with everything on the line like Marchand's doing. So it's a little different, but I see the point.
Chelios was 46 years old when he won the Stanley Cup with the Red Wings in 2008. That was his age 46 season. Then he ended his career with the Atlanta Thrashers.
How about
Julio Franco? Julio Franco's last hit in the big leagues was with the Braves at age 48.
Jeez.
How about Tim Duncan? They won their, what was it? He won his last championship at age 37. And they had a young team. They had a young team that year.
He wasn't carrying them
he wasn't
because
carrying,
he had the help, but he was still really good.
Many texters. I think the most popular answer we've received is George Foreman winning the heavyweight title at age 45.
You're right. You're absolutely right. George Foreman. Yes.
Okay, so what year did he actually? Remember, he had some fight. He didn't win them all, right? But he had the resurgence when he was in his high 40s.
Yeah, but he was
a champion of some sort.
Yeah, he was the heavyweight champion.
He won the heavyweight. He won the WBA and IBF heavyweight championship in 1994. He was 45 years old.
How about Floyd Mayweather? But I guess Floyd never had a guy.
Fight at 50, George Foreman? I feel like he did.
He won via 10th round knockout.
Who did he beat? Moore?
He beat Michael Moorer.
Michael Moorer, yes.
Michael Moorer.
I saw that fight. Man, that was
Moorer was 35-0 with 30 knockouts before that fight.
Man, he
was 26. He was 26 years and 11 months old. Foreman was 45 years and 9 months old.
That's that grown man strip. I be telling these little kids, don't mess with no grown man. You think you overtake your dad? Better watch it, man.
To David,
a lot of Foreman grills after that victory for sure.
To David James' point, a lot of people have mentioned Albert Pujols' final season with the Cardinals, getting to 700 home runs. Let's go to Buffalo. Yes, Buffalo on our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hunter.com. Thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Yeah, I kind of tuned in late on what was qualifying, but do y'all remember Alan Kowicki taking the championship? He wasn't maybe that old, but he was fourth in the last race, and he started that year in '92 with no sponsorship and took the championship.
Thank you for the call, Buffalo.
So it dipped down to a low level and had a resurgence. The age is key. I do think that ingredient really hits the home run. If you're older, your career has gone down, and you go from maybe being towards the top of the mountain to we think this guy is done, and then you have the big moment coming back. I think that's the sweet spot.
Let's go to Albert on our phone line, driven by Wilson County, Hyundai.com. Albert, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Got one for Willie. Rusty Staub on the Mets back in the day. He'd come off the bench and cold, he'd get a hit 90% of the time.
Thank you for the call,
This
Albert.
was back in the day. Okay, so Rusty Staub in 1985 was 41. Okay, so not Julio Franco 48. So Julio Franco's out there somewhere going, hey, man, let's see Rusty do this for another 7 years. But I think the Mets kept him for a couple years late in his career to strictly be a pinch hitter. Remember, there's no DH back then in the National League. And it was a big thing if you're a Met fan, for sure.
615-737-1025. We have so many texts that we want to get to on this topic that our friend Turron Davenport, ESPN, NFL Nation Titans reporter, has agreed to push back his segment until 1:20. So we will continue to take
I'm
your
sure
thoughts.
he'll have his own entry
yes,
into the conversation.
absolutely.
Sure.
So we will continue this topic at 615-737-1025. Your favorite old guy still got it moment in sports in honor of Brad Marchand with the Florida Panthers at age 37. 6 goals in the Stanley Cup final, the most by a player age 35 or older in Stanley Cup final history. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Bingen, 1025-1063, The Game. D. Mace Finn, Ganadonic, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. And we are presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan. Continuing the old guy still got it conversation. A lot of you want to weigh in. So before we get to Turron, Davenport, let's do that. Let's start with Miles on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Miles, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, I hope you guys are doing well, and I hope you can hear me.
We can.
Okay. All right. So, everybo's taking all the good answers, but I was really enjoying this topic, and I thought I'd have some fun with it. So I'm going to give you a couple stats here. This guy is well known that he knocked the cover off the ball one time. He sometimes would even play two positions, and this was back in the day. He took down the beast, and he was briefly mentored by Babe Ruth. Does anybody know who I'm talking about here?
I do.
I definitely do.
20 years later, Dodgers hits a home run. Smalls on the call. Vinny the Jet Rodriguez, guys. I couldn't think of anybody else, and I started thinking, let's just have some fun and hit a movie or do something like that. So,
well, it's not great. It's not Grease, Miles, but we'll allow
the
it.
Jet or Roy Hobbs.
Hey, that's Willie's movie right there.
Oh, I like The Sandlot is one of the greatest. It's one of the greatest of all time.
I don't want to take any more time, but I do have to say, Squints, if you really think about it, Squints with Wendy Peppercorn may have ended up being the comeback player because we find out they get married down the road and own the drugstore. So,
thank you for the call, Miles.
I like that one.
Let's go to Jay on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Jay, thanks for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, I'm kind of surprised I haven't heard this one yet. I think by age he qualifies. But what about Pekka Rinne during the Cup race in 2018? Stood on his head.
Thanks for the call, Jay. It's an interesting one because Pekka Rinne
he won the Vezina.
He did
that year.
His first Vezina trophy. He did have the comeback from the hip infection a few years earlier, right? That the season did not end as well for Pekka Rinne, of course, in Game 7 against the Winnipeg Jets. But Pekka Rinne, like I'm not sure I would put him
How
in
old
that.
was he, Adam? Was he 40? Or no, I'm sorry, 34. I'll double check here. I want to say
when he won the Vezina.
Older guys, one of the older
older
goalies to win.
I believe
the
he was 35 when he won the Vezina.
Vezina trophy, 35. Yeah, 35. That's pretty good for winning the Vezina, no question.
Let's go to Ron on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Ron, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard this yet, and it may not qualify because he didn't win, but he was on a big stage and he damn near come close. How about Tom Watson almost winning the British Open at 60 years old?
I don't remember. What year was that?
I can't remember the year, but he went into the 18th hole with a one-stroke lead. Curtis Strange was in the clubhouse, one stroke behind, and he bogeyed the 18th hole, and then they played 3 extra holes, and he ended up losing. But he was either 59 and a month or two away from 60 or 60.
He was 59 years old in 2009.
Yeah, 2009 at the British Open. I mean, I think that's an incredible feat for an old man.
Thank you for the call, Ron. Let's go to Eric on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Eric, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, guys, I've got two. I know one for sure qualifies, and the other one I'm not sure if he does or not. The first one says football. John Elway, who won back-to-back Super Bowls at 37, 38 years old. The only thing, of course, he had help from Terrell Davis. He doesn't get Terrell Davis. I don't know if that happened. The other one, I'm not sure of his age, of course. I'm thinking of Dennis Eckersley because I know he started for years for like the Red Sox, but then he was a reliever with the Cubs. But I believe he was on all 3 World Series teams with the Oakland A's. They lost, of course, to the Dodgers and the Reds, but they did beat San Francisco in the Earthquake Series. I didn't know Eckersley, what his age was, if he was still pitching with the A's at that time, but I was thinking of Dennis Eckersley.
Definitely went through a dip where it looked like Eckersley was done, and he definitely was done as a starting pitcher. And then the A's and Tony La Russa made him into a great closer, and he had like a second career. So I think that's a unique one. And here's one tidbit on Rinne, guys. Pekka Rinne is the 10th oldest ever to win the Vezina, and about 5 of the 10 are in the earlier. The 5 of the 9 that are older than him did it in an age where it was still the original 6, so not really in the modern modern era. So in recent times, the last 20 years, 30 years, Pekka Rinne is among the oldest to ever win the Vezina.
Let's run through some of these other ones. Oh, go ahead, Derek.
Here's one. And maybe this qualified, maybe it doesn't, because this person retired, then came back. Michael Phelps, he was still young, but he ended up retiring 12, decided to come out of retirement and won 5 more medals in the Olympics. So does that qualify? Because he was on the top of his game, I guess, when he retired.
And I don't know what you would consider old for swimming.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, because he's only 39 right now.
Right. So I'm gonna say no on that one.
Okay.
But I don't know. My age is for like swimmers in their prime. I can't say I have a solid foundation for that. Another popular choice on our text line, Mario Lemieux, who beat cancer, came back, was just as good. I think Mario Lemieux certainly qualifies for this. Let's see. Let's run through some more of these. One texter says Lance Berkman was traded by the Astros and considered heading down, and then finished top 10 in MVP and won a World Series with the Cardinals at age 35.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Periphery, I would say, but worth mentioning. I mean, we're going deep on the list here, right? We're
Yes.
not maybe naming the most. We're just naming other nominees.
Yes. One texter says Andre Agassi didn't make it to 35. He was 32 when he won his last Grand Slam after his run through the qualifiers back up to the top. Old guy Cinderella story in tennis. However, 32 is not considered old any longer in tennis.
Nah, it's not.
It's amazing what these guys are doing in tennis today. But Agassi did hit a dip, right, where he looked like his career was in jeopardy.
You have to have the dip. You have to have some sort of dip. Either it's a statistical dip, or a team cuts you, or gives you away in a trade. Like, there has to be that low point in the story, because you have to build yourself back up.
Did anybody? No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead.
Did anybody say Andy Pettit?
Nobody said Andy Pettit.
Okay.
What do you think,
Retired.
Willie?
Came back.
Andy Pettit. Remember, he was caught up in the Mitchell report.
Yes.
In the whole the comical story when they were getting after Roger Clemens, and they said, but Andy Pettit says that you took the stuff. You took the bad stuff. And Roger Clemens' answer was what? Do you remember?
I don't.
I think Andy misremembers. Like he didn't want to. He said it like 5 different times. Like he didn't want to. He loved Andy Pettit.
Right.
Andy Pettit did not want. He's like considered one of the nicest guys in the sport. And Andy Pettit was being honest because he was on the list, and he said, "Look, he was honest about it. He said I took human growth hormone or whatever. I had a hurt arm. I wasn't able to pitch, and he like a lot of players took this stuff to rejuvenate his career, and he admitted it. Of course, Roger Clemens did a lot of the same things and more, and never would admit it. I mean, was staunchly denying everything, even though all of the evidence pointed towards him. So So Andy Pettit testified that this is what he saw, and Roger Clemens says, "I don't think Andy is lying. I just think he misremembers."
I'm going to use that the next time I get into an argument with my wife.
He's misremembering. Yes.
I think you're misremembering. And then I'll remember how to sleep on the couch. 615-737-1025. Turron Davenport, ESPN, NFL Nation Titans reporter. He'll join us coming up next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025, 1063 The Game. D-Mace Fingan and Donick 1025, 1063 the game. It's
Sandy.
I don't think we had on Turron Davenport to listen to Derek Mason sing, but we
He
are
was
joined.
whining like Keith Sweat.
We are joined on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com, by Turron Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation Titans reporter. Turron, your thoughts on Derek singing there?
Yeah, well, you know, good thing
47th
I was on the
anniversary of
elevator. Yeah, good thing I was on the elevator and it was kind of breaking up, so I didn't have to hear any of that.
Danny Zook.
That's
he was whining like Keith Sweat. That's all. That's all you need to know.
Oh, there you go, telling me no.
Turron, before we ask you about the Titans, we've been having fun today talking about our favorite old guy still got it moment in sports. Do you have one that comes to mind?
Old guy still got it in sports. You know, one of my favorite ones actually would probably be Jerry Rice with the Seattle Seahawks scoring touchdowns. He caught like a post for a touchdown, and he strolled into the end zone. And even though, you know, I don't like Jerry, like he's not my favorite player, it's still pretty cool to see that.
Turron, you wrote a story at ESPN.com detailing Cam Ward's relationship with his father, Calvin, and how much that relationship and his relationship with his family as a whole led him to where he is today. As you were reporting this story, what was your favorite anecdote you learned about the Ward family?
That's a good question. My favorite is probably the experience they had at the Incarnate Word camp. So they went there, and you know, there were two sessions, and Cameron Ward was a part of the second session, which started at 1 p.m. And by the time 2 o'clock rolled around, they're like, all right, shut it down. It's all over. And they did that because Cam made a throw from the opposite hash to the sideline on a comeback route. And the offensive coordinator, Coach Leftwich, he was like, yeah, I don't want anybody else to see him. And it was funny because is Mr. Ward, Calvin Ward, Cam's dad, he was telling me that he was like, you know, they came to us. Like, I asked them what the heck happened because I drove 3.5 hours to be at this camp, and they shut it down after an hour. And I said, what was going on? And he said, oh, well, you know, we don't want anybody else to see you. And Cam looked at his dad and was like, what the heck are you talking about? Nobody has even approached us, you know, because he had 0 offers up to that moment.
So earlier we were talking about best case, worst case scenarios for Titans players. We're going to be doing this throughout the week, and we talked about Cam Ward today. Realistically, what do you think the best case scenario is for Cam Ward? You can look at it statistically, you can look at it as more of a feel, but when you think realistically, Turron, what the best case scenario for Cam Ward is this season with the Titans, what do you think immediately?
I think the best case scenario is he throws for 4,000. Now, this is not a prediction, so let's get this straight. The best case scenario is he throws for 4,000 yards, becomes the first Titans quarterback to do that, has a low interception number and high touchdown number, and the team wins, you know, 7 or 8 games. That's the way I look at it.
Now, TD, because Willie and I discussed this last week about Brian Callahan and the way he talks about Cam Ward. It's different from the way he spoke of Will Levis last year, even though he was optimistic. But I just think, you know, not trying to put the cart before the horse, but it seems like, you know, Brian, as well as the other coaches, or especially on the offensive side of the ball, they see something in him that they haven't seen in prior quarterbacks, those that have been around here. And they are overly optimistic or cautiously optimistic about what they can do moving forward. Do you see it that way?
Yeah, I think it's more. Last year it was a lot of optimism, and this year is conviction, right? And I think a good example, and I'm actually literally I was going through and editing the story because it's coming out later this week, you know, about the trash talk and what that kind of means, right? Because Brian Callahan, he said specifically that they found out they have a guy on the offensive side of the ball that will trash talk too, right? And give it back to Jeffrey Simmons. And he said that's not exactly something they've had before. So now, you know, you got a guy that will do that and fill that leadership role, because we know the offense has needed a leader, right, since Derrick Henry left.
And even with Henry here, it was more of just like a quiet lead by example type of ordeal. And Brian Callahan, he said that that's not the type of, not that Derrick Henry isn't the type of leader that he wants. The lead by example, that's not the type of leader that they want. So I think you look at that, you look at the headbutt that J.C. Latham, saw Cam Ward give to Jeffrey Simmons. Like, these are all things that make them like, oh, man, this might be the guy. I think this is the guy, right? So to me, it comes across as more conviction. Then you even look at, some of the things that he's been able to do in practice, right? Even to Simmons himself, they're talking trash to him. He's walking to the huddle. He relays the play and then proceeds to deliver a strike to Chigakonkwo, for a first down during third down period, right? Right after responding to Jeffrey Simmons. Like, these are all small things, but they're piling up, and they're convincing these guys that he could be the one for them.
Now, also, before I pass it over to Willie, we also did it with Jeffrey Simmons, and you mentioned he and Jeff, the worst case, best case scenario for Jeff. Can you see this happening moving forward with Jeff Simmons next year, right around this time? And I'm not saying this is a bad thing, so don't get me wrong, people, that Jeffrey will be a no-show next year, and it will be because of contract situations. And then the Titans will have to make a decision on whether to try to get something for Jeffrey now or try to re-sign him and sort of move on with them that way. So how do you think this looks come next season or next off season right around this time?
Well, honest, that could have been something this year, but they were able to avoid that. And I think when you look at Jeff's contract, it's still, top 5, I believe, among defensive tackles, right? Interior guys. And look, man, let's be honest. Milton Williams and the Patriots, like, that contract messed it up for everybody. Everybody had to go back and relook at their situation. So next year, we'll see. I think a lot of it's going to depend on what he does this year. Like, can he finally get to those double-digit sacks? Will he finally consistently win those rare occasions where he gets one-on-ones? Will he start splitting the double team a little bit better, and flush the quarterback to whoever's coming on the outside? Those are all things that I think are going to weigh into it. If he has another one of the years that Jeff has had, like last year, or the year before, then I don't really think he's going to have grounds to go back and say, hey, let's look at this.
And I brought it up because of what has happened this year, in particular, him being the only guy not there at the building for that voluntary OTAs. And I brought it up because, to me, he understands that this is a contract season. And again, that it is what it is, and it's not a bad thing, but he understands this is a contract season. So for him, he's trying to do whatever he needs to do to make sure that he's a much better player this upcoming season than he was last season. And last season, he was a damn good player, but he just wasn't at the bar that he had set 2 seasons ago.
Right. And I think, the bigger picture in that is, yeah, of course, as you said, he wants to do everything he can to be a better player. And he felt that wherever he was training, in Dallas and up here, was going to make him a better player. But I think with the contract situation next year, I think I wouldn't be surprised if he's there for voluntary, just because it's one of those things where it's like, you know what? I don't want to, his saying, right? Give him a reason. Like, that's the same for his foundation. I think it's going to be the opposite, where it's like, I don't want to give them a reason to try to highlight, hey, you're supposed to be our leader. You weren't here for voluntary OTAs. How are you our leader? Why should we pay you? So I think he's going to be there just, from that perspective, from the optical perspective.
Turron, before we let you go, I don't believe we have spoken to you since Jeffrey Simmons addressed reporters for the first time at mandatory minicamp last week. What did you make of his response to not coming to the voluntary portion of the offseason program? He mentioned it was a personal decision on multiple fronts, but in terms of how he answered the question, the tone in which he answered the question, how do you think that Simmons handled that?
Yeah, I think the tone was fine. Like, he didn't have a defensive tone. It was sincere. I would like to have gotten him to open up a little bit more to why he felt it was better to train on his own as opposed to with the team and for their different activities. But I do understand the perspective that he gave, just as far as like, hey, I recognize it to be important. I found another way to continue to make myself better. I'm 20 pounds lighter, feel more explosive, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that, holds some weight. But again, he should have been, from an optical perspective, he should have been there. He knew that I would imagine he knew he was the only one not there, being as though he communicated with the coaches. I'm sure and other players, I'm sure that was relayed to him. So knowing that, maybe not the first couple of days, but come at some point just to avoid this whole thing that we have going on as far as like this being the conversation.
Turron Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation Titans reporter, joining us as he does every Monday on D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick. Turron, great stuff as always, my friend. We'll talk next week.
All right, appreciate it. Take care.
Turron Davenport on the program. 615-737-1025. We have more of the old guys still got it. A lot of texts that we can get to. Also, in my opinion, I emphasize, in my opinion, some major breaking news in the world of sports, quote unquote, sports. And we'll discuss that coming up next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025, 1063, The Game. All right, Derek, do the honors, my friend.
We come together like.
I was hoping you would actually do the rama lama lama damma damma ding
I got
dong.
something in my mouth now. Some cookies. I was eating some cookies. But that's the end. That's toward the end.
So Grease was released in theaters today.
Yes.
Okay.
47 years ago.
In
wasn't it? Yep.
1978.
Mm-hmm.
June
I was
16th.
the ripe age of 4.
I would have to say it's I was age 7 that Olivia Newton-John might have had to be one of my earliest crushes. Like I didn't really know what was going on, but when you're 7, but you kind of
your heart was fluttering every time you saw her on the screen.
You seem drawn. You seem sort of drawn to a character. Like Olivia Newton-John, yeah, for sure.
Of course.
And then there was, of course, the ill-fated sequel, Grease 2.
Yeah, don't you ever.
We don't discuss that.
Yeah, we don't
discuss that.
We don't discuss that.
Starring.
We do not acknowledge.
Yes, we do not acknowledge 2. Okay.
Not even Michelle Pfeiffer.
No, it doesn't. No.
In a general sense, I very much.
I mean, I like Michelle Pfeiffer,
but
yes,
not
but
Grease 2.
That wasn't her best career move right there. To be in Grease
Here's the
2.
one thing you do know about Grease 2 when you watch it, because a lot of the stars of Grease, John Travolta, Olivia Newton-John, they didn't come back for Grease 2.
No.
You always know when actors are down bad when they come back for sequels. And I'm looking at the reprising roles from Grease section on Wikipedia in Grease 2. The actress who played Frenchie was in Grease 2.
She was in Grease 2, yeah.
So clearly she wasn't getting a lot of work between 1978 and 1982.
Well, Frenchie never graduated high school, I don't think, because Frenchie went to beauty school. Remember, Frenchie went to beauty school.
She was a beauty school dropout.
Then they kicked Frenchie out of beauty school. Yeah. So I don't think she graduated high school, or did she? No wonder she was back.
Did she come back? Like that? Whatever happened to Frenchie? Because that was the motif of the song, right? That was the advice that whoever that was it Frankie Avalon. Is that who's singing?
Frankie, yeah.
Go back to high school. That's the message.
High school dropout.
Beauty school dropout. So we have some major breaking news in the world of sports, in quotation marks. My man, Joey Chestnut. He's returning to the Nathan's hot dog eating contest after a 1-year hiatus. He'll be back in the saddle.
How old is Joey Chestnut?
I don't know, but he's a 16-time world champion. The old guy still got it as far as I'm concerned. If he comes back and wins the hot dog eating contest, he qualifies.
No, but you can't. So he retired, 15 years ago?
He didn't retire.
You can't I guess you can retire.
I mean, I guess you can. You keep eating after you retire. You just
so
don't do it competitively anymore. You just eat with a knife and a fork. But this was my favorite line from this story on ESPN. Chestnut, the 16-time champion, missed last year's event because of a dispute with Major League Eating over his sponsorship deal with Impossible Foods, a company that makes plant-based hot dogs.
Right. Okay. So that was not retirement. That was like controversy.
Yeah,
that was you're banned. He was banned.
He was banned.
Basically, he didn't retire.
But Chestnut added that he continues to partner with companies in the quote-unquote plant-based space. But those relationships never conflicted with his quote love for hot dogs.
Now, when did Joey Chestnut become a professional? If indeed we can call that
it's a profession.
Yeah.
That's his job.
Okay.
He gets paid.
So when did he become
Joey
a
Chestnut is
professional?
41 years old, just so everyone knows.
He's 41 now.
Yeah,
So
41.
Old guy still got it. If he sets his own record on July 4th, old guy still got it.
No, it's not. No, because what is considered old in the hot dog eating world? Because I mean, as long as you can eat.
Larry David participated in a hot dog eating contest on an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm. He's pretty old.
Joey Chestnut was 22 years old in 2005 when he started his eating career.
Oh, okay.
Willie, I'm staking my claim right now. The old guy still got it if he breaks his personal record after a 1-year hiatus.
I gotta look up.
So.
Yeah, I gotta go to the. I gotta go look this up, man.
So last
He
year,
may be breaking the
he
rules.
did a head-to-head hot dog eating contest with his arch nemesis Kobayashi. That aired on Netflix.
How can you have an arch
Chestnut
enemy
ate
and eat
83
hot dogs?
He ate 83 hot dogs. 83. if Joey Chestnut eats 84 hot dogs
Oh, my
on July
goodness.
4th, old guy still got it Hall of Fame as far as I'm
Hold
concerned.
on. Now, seriously.
With that big mustard belt.
Seriously. 83. How much did Joey Chestnut weigh? Like right now, do they have a weight on Joey Chestnut?
He's
He's a thin guy, isn't he?
Right. I think there's this misconception that that fat guys are good at eating.
Yeah, and
contests.
that's not
Remember
the case.
when Refrigerator Perry tried the hot dog
He ate
eating
like
contest?
3 hot
He
dogs.
bailed after like 3 hot dogs.
So it says on Google that he's 230. Well, 229.
Okay, 229. He ate 83 hot dogs at one sitting. Like, where's this stuff going?
You don't want to know, my friend.
I get it, but man, 83 hot dogs?
And he doesn't look like he's enjoying it when he's doing it. You know, he dips the water, he dips the bun in the water. He's not enjoying it.
Gosh, man.
But he
83 hot dogs.
He will be goated in my mind when he comes back in a couple of weeks.
But
and he eats those hot dogs.
He doesn't fall into that category, Adam. He doesn't.
All right,
He doesn't.
fine.
I'm just gonna say.
Are you outruling me too, Willie, on this?
Yeah, I think he's always been considered the the best in the biz.
Now, if he loses this year, then comes back the next year.
That is true. If he falls short this time and comes
After
back
being banned
for 1 year, after being banned because he likes plant-based hot dogs, if he comes back, if he loses this year, which I doubt he will, and comes back next year and wins, then maybe we can reconsider.
But how do we know? Seriously, these are questions that I want to know. How do we know when Joey's on a decline? Like, does he go from 83 hot dogs to 82 hot dogs? You know, or 80 hot dogs?
Well, if I recall correctly,
and he still wins?
If I recall correctly, near the end of Kobayashi's time on the Nathan's hot dog eating circuit, I think he might have vomited during the hot dog eating contest.
That's when you know it's about that
and
time.
that's when you get disqualified. So maybe Joey Chestnut, he loses his cookies or his hot dogs, I guess, in this case.
Yeah.
But
oh well.
Joey Chestnut is one of my Ralph's.
What does Joey Chestnut eat just like for a regular meal?
I've told this story on the air. I saw him eating with a knife and a fork at a restaurant in San Jose, California, and it was a jarring experience. I was like, you look like you're enjoying your meal. I didn't know this was possible. I thought everything was shoved in your mouth over 10 minutes.
Oh man.
If you want to have some fun in your spare time, go on Google, and because Joey Chestnut doesn't only eat hot dogs, like he does other eating contests. Go look at some of the other world records he holds.
You know what's crazy? Do you know what else he does?
What's that?
He's a civil engineer.
I would have never never judge a book by its cover. I would have never thought that of Joey Chestnut.
He contains multitudes, Joey Chestnut.
You know what? I'm a Chestnut fan now.
Yeah.
I'm a Chestnut fan.
Joey.
That doesn't mean that he qualifies for what we're talking about.
July 4th is a Friday. We won't be on the air, but maybe I can convince Chase that I'll do live reaction to the Nathan's hot dog eating contest on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. 615-737-1025. We will wrap up the show. Unfortunately, Jared Stillman unable to join us today. But we will. What? Yes, he is apparently. This is the text he sent me. He said, he goes, I'm 50-50 for 140. I got issues with my car and 2 separate repair shops are blaming each other.
He's slacking. He stiffed us last week. I think it's a CO conspiracy, D Mace. I think he's just stiff arming us. He's big timing us.
I agree.
Okay.
Straight up. Well, okay, Jared, we got you.
Nick Frazier has texted me as well and says, tell D-Mace I'll give him a full rundown tomorrow, I assume on Joey Chestnut. That man is one of the most impressive athlites on planet Earth.
So you consider Joey Chestnut an athlete?
He has to train, doesn't he?
How do you eat hot dogs? That's all you got. I mean, you train by eating hot dogs.
We're stretching athletes to a thin layer now.
I mean, an athlete.
This is almost like when Fox 17 had a headline last week calling Ed a celebrity zebra. We're stretching the limits of celebrity.
Yes.
Joey Chestnut is a foodlete.
A foodlete?
A food athlete.
Okay, I get it.
We'll have to work on that one.
Yeah, we got it.
Yeah, I know. I tried really hard on that one. But
you tried it quick.
Yeah.
I don't blame you.
Okay,
I don't blame you. I
thank
get
you.
it.
All right.
I get it.
615-737-1025. I, for one, am stoked for July 4th. 615-737-1025. We'll wrap up the show next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063 The Game. D. Mace, Fingan, and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game. We are hopelessly devoted to Joey Chestnut, or at least I am. And there are more important sports things we can talk about right now. But during the break, I did find a story from Business Insider written in 2023 about how Joey Chestnut trains for the Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest. So you tell me if he's not an athlete with what he has to do here. And Willie, I want to hear your thoughts as well. He starts preparing for the contest 6 months in advance. He begins dieting and working out after the holidays to get himself in the best shape possible before he has to start training with the hot dogs. At the end of April, more than 2 months before the competition, he starts doing a practice contest every week. Chestnut's basement is even set up with speakers and flashing lights to help mimic the Coney Island environment. Talking about a full immersive experience. It takes a week just to prepare for each practice round. He starts by doing a 2-day cleanse of water and lemon juice, the same cleanse he does before the actual competition. In between practices, he's working on my jaw and throat. I have a weird routine of exercises I do that really make those little muscles in my jaw and throat much stronger.
Again, it's weird, man. That's not train. I guess
that's training.
But how much? Okay. Because when I think of training, I think of, building muscle, cutting some weight, stuff like that. but he's gaining weight. When you're training, are you?
I don't know. A
gain
2-day
like
cleanse of water and lemon juice sounds terrible.
It does.
You're trying to train your stomach. Like he's
You're
trying
training
to,
your stomach.
he's trying to make sure.
Okay, so it's so you're trying to train your stomach by doing that.
Yeah. So like, so whenever you are getting ready for, surgery, you have to have a water fast.
Okay,
so he's training his stomach to be able to expand.
That's not training.
Willie, you rule on this one.
That's not training.
I've saw the 30 for 30 on Joey Chestnut, and it might have been the 30 for 30 on Chestnut and Kobayashi. I don't know if it was actually both, the sort of the rivalry or whatever. It's an hour and a half of my life I'll never get back. But I did see some of the exercises that he did. Like I appreciate that you just to do anything great, you have to put in the time, the reps, etc.
Come on, are y'all seriously doing this? Even Andrew.
No, I'm with you, D-Mace. I'm not impressed.
He said that he believes that eating hot dogs. I don't know, is the sport called eating hot dogs?
It's competitive eating.
Competitive eating is more of a sport than say chess. For all the chess players out there, what do y'all think? I think chess is more of a sport than eating hot dogs.
Yeah.
But Andrew doesn't think it.
Andrew, by the way,
Yeah,
our
he's in
guest
here.
today in the studio.
Exactly, he's our
referring
guest.
to you as Mr. Donick.
Yeah, he's. I'm here to follow. I'm here to follow Mr. Donick. Who the hell is Mr. Donick? For one, you mean Willie?
I didn't know Willie's dad was here.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know Willie's dad was here. You mean Willie D? But yes, Andrew says that he would, that eating hot dogs is more of a sport than chess.
Well, let's get back to.
I guess from a physical training standpoint, I guess you could buy it.
That's
but
mental training, man. And then I got to work.
It's just disgusting.
I got to work my forearm.
Interesting.
I got to work my forearm to move the pieces. You got to work it, man.
You're working your brain.
Yeah,
you're working your brain.
See,
let's talk about sports that we can all agree are sports.
Okay.
Tonight is Game 5 of the NBA Finals, tied at 2 between the Pacers and Oklahoma City Thunder. A whopper also of a trade in Major League Baseball yesterday, with Rafael Devers being traded from the Boston Red Sox to the San Francisco Giants. First Mookie Betts, now Rafael Devers. Interesting time with the Boston Red Sox, Willie.
Very interesting time. And the Red Sox just completed a sweep of the Yankees. They've played really well against the Yankees of all teams, but they have been very hit or miss throughout the year. They've lost a ton of one-run games. And the Devers thing, and this is, of course, as you mentioned, the backdrop is this is on the heels a few years later after trading Mookie Betts, which is still one of the biggest mistakes they've made since probably the Babe Ruth debacle that we've, the whole curse of the Bambino thing. But in the reaction to that, almost they locked in Rafael Devers to a 10-year deal and paid him a mountaintop of money, only to see it go south in the relationship. It was a feud, which in Boston becomes a massive thing. They told Rafi Devers, "Hey, we're just going to let you DH. You don't need to field." Then they had a problem at first base with some injuries, and they asked Rafi Devers, "Would you play first base?" And he refused to do it. And so even though Devers is still only like 28 years old, and he's only in the second year of this 10-year deal, it became a thing. And the Red Sox do have a very, very promising pool of young players that they're trying to get on the field. So that was a bold move. But the reaction of the Red Sox fans yesterday was, wow. I mean, they were all over this because the Giants didn't really give up a lot. Nothing that is a certainty. Just kind of like the Red Sox didn't get a whole lot from Mookie Betts. This looks very similar. It's really just clearing salary and clearing the space for these young players to come up. So this is a really intriguing trade. And from the Giants' perspective, Rafael Devers coming into the National League, that is a big, big needle mover for that team in particular.
I was shocked, Willie, when I saw this, that the Giants have not had a 30 home run hitter since Barry Bonds.
Unbelievable.
When I read that yesterday, I had to make sure it wasn't a typo. 2004, was the last time the San Francisco Giants had a player hit 30 home runs. The next longest drought is shared by multiple teams, but that was 2019. So by far, the Giants at 20 plus years without a 30 home run hitter. That's just absurd.
Unbelievable. And they won 3 World Series during that time without ever having a 30 home run hitter. And so Devers, of course, that park that they play in is not the easiest park to hit home runs in. So that's a little bit of the story. But that team has a lot of good pieces, but what they've been missing is a hitter like Devers. So I think the Giants are a team to contend with, and that's probably not good news for the Braves, who have to dig out of a hole. And by the way, the Braves host the Mets tonight for a big series, the first time they played each other this year. But in a scenario where the Braves get hot and dig out of the hole they're in, which I think they will at some point, at least make a run at it, that's one more team in the Giants that I think is a legit team that you have to get by in the National League. And we'll see where the Red Sox go after surging and beating the Yankees now that the Devers drama is over.
Derek, the Thunder are 9.5-point favorites tonight at home against the Pacers. That's a shocking number. No pun intended.
Yeah, but I think what's happening is people see, even though the series is tied up, this past game, they shot the lowest three-pointers they've shot all season. Now, OKC is a high-volume shooting team when it comes to three-pointers because they got a lot of good three-point shooters. And they only shot 16 compared to, I think, Indiana's. They shot almost 43 pointers. They played old school basketball, Willie. They played it, inside the 3-point line, and they were capable and able to win. A lot of it, I think, hinges on how well Chet Holmgren plays moving forward. When he's playing well, because he's one of those unique guys, and I don't think he gets a lot of credit. I think a lot of it goes to like Wemby or some of these other guys that are 6'11", 7 foot, KD. But if you watch Chet Holmgren play, man, this dude can play at 7 foot. He can handle the ball. He can shoot from outside. He has a nice low post game. So they played old school basketball the other day. And I just think clearly Vegas sees that Oklahoma City is the better team. And even though Indiana has found themselves, winning 2 of them, they just think that the series, it may go 7, but ultimately OKC wins this series. So
I was really impressed on Friday night that Indiana was, trying to will themselves. They had the lead, right? It was the opposite of what we've been seeing a lot, is Indiana chasing the game and making the great comeback. This was the opposite in that Indiana had the lead, but I thought OKC, for a team that has had a great regular season, they've got a lot of fairly young players who haven't climbed to the top of the mountain. They kept really good poise, and they won the game in the fourth quarter. They made the key plays, key possessions late on the road. I think that was a big, big moment for that whole franchise. Like, I think looking back, if they go and win a couple of titles here, which they could, and guys like Holmgren, right? How old? Holmgren's still pretty young, right?
Yeah, he's young. He
still
hasn't been
pretty
in the
young.
league that long.
Yeah,
they got a
if they
young.
keep
Their
these
team
guys
is young.
together.
Period. I think Siakam may be the
I
oldest
think we'll
starter.
look at that. I think we'll look at that moment as a moment that they really grew up. So I think I wouldn't be surprised now if they win the next 2 games and take this thing.
As the Associated Press notes, viewership is down about 20% from last season, and it's on pace for the poorest TV turnout since the pandemic bubble finals in 2020. Tyrese Halliburton asked about that, says, "I do not care, to be honest with you. This is high-level basketball, and I'm excited to be a part of it." And this is what we talk about with ratings. We talked about this about a week and a half ago. We talked about the Stanley Cup final earlier. The Stanley Cup final has been outstanding. I cannot wait to watch Game 6 tomorrow, and I will absolutely be tuning in if there's a Game 7 later this week. The ratings for the Stanley Cup final aren't great, but I feel like you're not hearing as much about, was there a problem with the NHL? Was there a problem with the NBA? Because of these ratings, and the NBA ratings are 3-4 times higher than
I think
the Stanley Cup final right now.
NBA deals with the same problem.
And noting that that the finals are on ABC
Yeah,
and the Stanley
exactly.
Cup final is on network
And
on TNT.
I just think basketball deals with the same problem in a sense that baseball does. A lot of it's regional, and I guarantee you, if you were just to poll the state of Oklahoma, the viewership would be extremely high, or the state of Indiana, the viewership would be extremely high. But basketball is not like football. Ain't no sports like football. Football engulfs the whole country, no matter who's playing. If in the Super Bowl and the playoffs, if it's two teams you don't like, you still gonna watch it. If they don't have, say, that marquee quarterback, you still gonna watch it more than likely. I think basketball and baseball, it's more of a regional, and maybe they suffer a little bit once it starts to narrow down to just two teams. Then you start to see, where the national ratings doesn't look as good. But if you look at each individual, say if this was the Pistons and OKC, I know in the state of Michigan the ratings would be high, but would it be high anywhere else?
Yeah, it's a good question, and as I said, a lot of people suffer from "please like my sports" syndrome. Hockey fans definitely do. I think NBA fans do to a certain extent, but the finals in both sports have
been good,
wildly entertaining, which is what we want, because when they're over, we're stuck with baseball. No offense, Willie, but then we're stuck with baseball until training camp starts.
Yeah, let's go. I love the dog days of summer.
Hey man,
But,
we got a text.
You sent us an article, Adam, that I think probably contributes to some of this, the fragmentation of everything. And I directly can correlate it back to how we listen to sports talk radio today, right? It's not like it was 10, 15, 20 years ago, when there were just more collective things. There were less channels, less fragmentation. You sent us an article where it kind of goes through the costs of all of these streaming platforms, et cetera, how you have to get your games. And it just seems to divide a lot of people. There's not a lot of stuff. And the NFL might be the last one where everybody's watching the same game on the same night.
And we are going,
even the NBA Finals and the World Series and the Stanley Cup Finals. It's more fragmented now because more people sort of tune out when their team's out, or they're just not interested. They're not stuck watching it. Where back, 40 years ago, when there was no cable, you only got like 6 channels. So the big games were all you got.
And we're going to talk about that fragmentation tomorrow, but that'll do it for us today. We'll be back at 11. Stillman and Company coming up next.
And for that person that said Grease 2 was just as good, if not better, than Grease 1,
what?
You know what? I hope your toe gets stepped on all day today.
I hope you step on a Lego.
I missed this. Who said that?
Exactly. David sent me a text. I'm not even going to say the person's name, okay? But listen, you have a wonderful, blessed day. Love on your people. Take care of one another. Peace.